Humanity arrived and the Galactic Council stood frozen in fear. Part 1. The unexpected arrival of the Nexus Station had stood at the heart of galactic civilization for over 4,000 years. Built from materials harvested from a dozen different worlds and powered by 3 artificial stars, it served as the diplomatic center where 5 major galactic powers maintained an uneasy peace. The station's central spire stretched for 50 kilometers, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of distant nebulae in patterns that had hypnotized countless visitors over the millennia. Today, however, those same walls reflected something far more disturbing than starlight. They showed the faces of 5 species leaders, frozen in expressions of shock and disbelief as they stared at the holographic display floating above the Grand Assembly Chamber. The image showed a vessel that should not exist, detected by sensors that should have been impossible to fool, carrying beings that should never have found their way to the galaxy's most protected location. High Chancellor Vorthok of the Draconian Empire was the first to break the stunned silence. His scaled hands gripped the edges of his ceremonial throne as his golden eyes fixed on the data streaming across multiple screens. The Draconians had ruled star systems when most species were still learning to make fire, and their empire stretched across a quarter of the known galaxy. Vorthok himself had lived for over 8 centuries, had commanded fleets in a dozen wars, and had never encountered anything that could shake his confidence in Draconian superiority. The readings before him changed everything he thought he knew about power in the galaxy. The vessel that had appeared on their sensors measured only 200 meters in length, smaller than most diplomatic shuttles used for official visits to Nexus Station. But the energy output detected by their most advanced instruments showed power generation levels that exceeded anything in the Draconian fleet. The ship's hull appeared to be constructed from materials that their databases could not identify, arranged in geometric patterns that seemed to bend light around them in ways that should have been physically impossible. Counselor Zephora of the ethereal collective drifted forward, her translucent form shimmering with colors that indicated deep concern. The ethereals had evolved beyond physical matter, eons ago, existing as beings of pure energy who could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. Their understanding of advanced physics was unmatched anywhere in the galaxy, which made her next words all the more terrifying. The human vessel, she announced in harmonics that resonated through the chamber's crystal walls, was operating on principles that the collective had theorized about but never successfully implemented. The ship appeared to be drawing energy directly from the quantum vacuum, manipulating space-time itself to achieve faster than light travel without using any of the conventional hyperspace corridors that all galactic traffic depended upon. Most disturbing of all, the vessel seemed to be partially phased out of normal reality, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously in a way that made it nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Commander Gorax of the Titanium Brotherhood slammed his massive fist against the tactical display, causing the entire console to spark and flicker. The Brotherhood had built their civilization on the principle that superior firepower solved all problems, and their fleets had enforced peace in their sectors through overwhelming military strength for 2 millennia. Gorax stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body enhanced with cybernetic implants that made him stronger than most heavy machinery, and his experience in combat was legendary throughout the galaxy. None of that experience had prepared him for what their weapons sensors were telling them about the human ship. The vessel's defensive capabilities appeared to include energy shields that operated on frequencies their technology could not even detect. armor plating that seemed to absorb and redirect energy attacks, and something the computers could only describe as localized gravitational manipulation that would make conventional missiles useless. More disturbing still, the ship's weapon systems, if it had any, were completely undetectable by their most sophisticated military scanners. The communication that had triggered this emergency session was as polite as it was impossible. A being, identifying himself as Captain Alina Rodriguez of the Earth vessel. Harmony had transmitted a formal request for diplomatic contact using perfect galactic standard. The complex artificial language that had taken centuries to develop and was known only to certified diplomats and government officials. The message had been accompanied by greetings in the native languages of all 5 council species, including ceremonial phrases and cultural references that demonstrated deep understanding of their societies. Captain Rodriguez had explained that humanity was interested in establishing peaceful relations with the galactic community and hoped to arrange a meeting to discuss mutual cooperation and trade opportunities. The message was exactly the sort of first contact protocol that the Council had established for new civilizations. Polite and respectful and completely not threatening. The problem was not what the message said, but what it revealed about the species that had sent it. Admiral Kestra of the Aquatic Federation emerged from her environmental suit's nutrient bath, her gill slits fluttering with agitation as she reviewed the linguistic analysis her people had conducted on the human transmission. The Aquatics had developed the most sophisticated communication networks in the galaxy. Their underwater cities connected by information systems that could process and analyze any form of transmitted data. What they had discovered about the human message defied every assumption about how first contact was supposed to work. The humans had not just learned galactic standard, they had mastered it completely, understanding subtle nuances of meaning that even some council members missed. Embedded within their polite requests were casual references to recent council decisions that were supposed to be classified at the highest levels. The humans mentioned trade route modifications that had been discussed in closed sessions just weeks earlier, commented on military upgrade schedules that were known only to fleet commanders, and made friendly inquiries about cultural celebrations that had not yet been announced to the general population. The implications were clear and terrifying. These humans had been watching the Council for an unknown period of time, learning their languages, monitoring their communications, and studying their activities from a distance. They knew about Council operations, understood galactic politics, and had been preparing for this contact, while remaining completely invisible to the galaxy's most advanced detection systems. Asterisk. Architect Prime synthesis of the crystal mines added the final piece of information that transformed concern into genuine fear. The crystal mines existed as vast networks of living computers that spanned entire continents, their consciousness distributed across crystal matrices that could process information at speeds that approached the theoretical limits of physics. They served as the galaxy's memory banks and analytical engines, storing the knowledge of civilizations and predicting future developments with mathematical precision. Their analysis of the human ship's trajectory revealed something that made even their emotionless calculations pause. The vessel had not approached Nexus Station through normal space, or even through the heavily guarded hyperspace lanes that connected all civilized worlds. Instead, the humans had somehow bypassed every security measure, every monitoring station, and every early warning system by traveling through what could only be described as folded space-time. They had essentially teleported from an unknown location directly to the heart of galactic civilization. the technical implications were staggering. The humans possessed transportation technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Council had even imagined possible. They could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning, making every defense system obsolete and every strategic plan meaningless. If they chose to be hostile, there would be no way to stop them from striking at any target they desired. But perhaps most unsettling of all was the fact that they had chosen not to be hostile. The humans could have appeared directly inside Nexus Station, could have disabled their defenses, could have demanded surrender from a position of absolute superiority. Instead, they had politely requested permission to dock and had waited patiently for a response, while maintaining a respectful distance from the station's defensive perimeter. High Chancellor Vorthok called for an immediate vote on how to respond to the human request. The debate that followed would be remembered as one of the most critical moments in galactic history. Some council members argued for immediate military mobilization, calling for every available fleet to converge on Nexus Station to present a united front against this unknown threat. Others suggested attempting to delay the meeting, while they frantically tried to understand human capabilities and intentions. In the end, it was Councillor Zephyra who provided the wisdom that guided their decision. The ethereals had learned through their long existence that some forces in the universe were too powerful to oppose through conventional means. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that placed them far beyond the current understanding of galactic civilization. They could have taken whatever they wanted by force, but instead had chosen to ask politely for a meeting. The Council's response was unanimous, though it came from necessity rather than courage. They would meet with the humans, not because they were confident in their ability to negotiate from strength, but because they recognized that they had no other choice. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted the moment that human ship appeared on their sensors, and the 5 species that had ruled galactic civilization for millennia were about to discover what it meant to be the junior partners in a much larger universe. As the emergency session concluded, each council member returned to their quarters to prepare for what might be the most important diplomatic encounter in galactic history. None of them slept well that night, knowing that tomorrow they would sit across a negotiating table from beings who had demonstrated the ability to bypass every defense and see through every secret that the Council possessed. The humans were coming to Nexus Station, and nothing would ever be the same again. The revelation and new reality. The Grand Assembly Chamber had hosted diplomatic meetings between hostile species, treaty negotiations that ended centuries-long wars, and trade agreements that reshaped entire sectors of the galaxy. Built from living crystal that grew in perfect geometric patterns, the chamber could expand or contract to accommodate different types of beings, adjust its atmospheric composition for various species, and project holographic displays that made complex information instantly understandable to minds that had evolved under different stars. Today, however, the chamber felt different. The crystal walls seemed to pulse with nervous energy as representatives from 5 galactic powers waited for their first face-to-face encounter with humanity. Each species had brought their finest diplomats, their most experienced negotiators, and their strongest military advisors. They had prepared for every possible scenario, from hostile demands to complex trade proposals. But nothing had truly prepared them for what walked through the chamber's main entrance. Captain Elena Rodriguez entered first, and her appearance immediately challenged every assumption the Council had made about human physiology and behavior. She stood approximately 1.7 meters tall, with dark hair pulled back in a simple style and brown eyes that seemed to take in every detail of the chamber without appearing threatening or aggressive. She wore a uniform of deep blue fabric with minimal decorations, and her movements showed the confident grace of someone completely comfortable in any environment. Behind her came Admiral Chen Liu, a man with graying hair and steady hands, who carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who had commanded respect across multiple star systems. His uniform was similar to the captain's, but included subtle insignia that indicated high military rank. Despite being surrounded by beings who could crush him physically or incinerate him with advanced weapons, he showed no signs of fear or uncertainty. The third human was Dr. Marcus Thompson, a scientist whose weathered face and intense eyes suggested decades of research into subjects that most beings could not even comprehend. He carried a small device that the Council's sensors could not fully analyze, and his constant note-taking indicated a mind that was always observing and learning from new experiences. The formal greetings that followed demonstrated something that shook the Council members more than any display of military might could have. Captain Rodriguez addressed each species in their native language, using not just correct pronunciation, but subtle variations in tone and emphasis that showed deep understanding of their cultural meanings. When she spoke to High Chancellor Vor, she used the formal courtly dialect that was taught only to draconian nobility. Her greeting to Councillor Zephyra included harmonic frequencies that most solid beings could not produce naturally, but it was her interaction with Commander Gorax that truly impressed the assembly. The Titanium Brotherhood respected only strength and direct communication, viewing diplomatic niceties as weakness. Rodriguez greeted Gorax in the clipped military language used between Brotherhood warriors, acknowledged his combat achievements, with specific references to battles he had fought decades earlier, and somehow managed to convey respect for his capabilities without appearing to challenge his authority. Dr. Thompson then presented what he called humanity's scientific credentials, and the demonstration that followed left the Council's greatest minds struggling to comprehend what they were witnessing. Using his small device, he projected three-dimensional models that showed human understanding of physics, engineering, and biology that surpassed galactic knowledge in every field. He explained concepts that the crystal minds had spent centuries trying to understand, solved mathematical problems that had puzzled the ethereal collective for eons, and casually mentioned scientific principles that made the Draconian Empire's greatest achievements seem primitive by comparison. When Architect Prime Synthesis asked about human computational capabilities, Dr. Thompson smiled and began describing something he called quantum consciousness networks. He spoke about distributed processing systems that used biological neural networks enhanced with quantum field manipulation to achieve calculation speeds that approached theoretical infinity. The explanation was patient and clear, designed for beings who he obviously understood were working with much simpler technology. Admiral Liu remained quiet through most of the scientific presentation, but when Commander Gorax asked directly about human military doctrine, the atmosphere in the chamber changed dramatically. Liu spoke in a calm, measured voice that somehow carried more authority than any battle cry. He explained that humanity had extensive experience with conflict resolution and had developed strategic approaches based on what he diplomatically called efficient threat neutralization. When pressed for specific details about human fleet capabilities or weapon systems, Liu simply noted that Earth maintained defensive forces appropriate to their security requirements, and that human military philosophy focused on preventing conflicts rather than winning them. The way he said it, combined with the slight smile that never reached his eyes, made it clear that he considered the question answered, even though he had revealed nothing concrete about human military strength. The most revealing moment came when High Chancellor Vorthok asked the question that had been haunting the Council since the humans arrived. How long had they been observing galactic civilization, and what did they really want from this contact? Captain Rodriguez exchanged a brief glance with her colleagues before answering with disturbing honesty. She explained that human deep space exploration had detected Council activities over 3 centuries ago through what she described as standard gravitational wave analysis and quantum signature monitoring. Humanity had spent the following decades learning galactic languages, studying their cultures, and developing what she called cultural integration protocols. The humans had not been hiding from the Council out of malicious intent, but simply because they wanted to understand galactic civilization before making contact. Dr. Thompson then presented detailed analysis that left the Council members speechless. He had comprehensive data on each species, including psychological profiles, social structures, economic systems, and predicted responses to various diplomatic scenarios. The humans had information on everything from draconian military traditions to ethereal energy manipulation techniques to aquatic communication networks. They had been studying galactic civilization like scientists examining a complex but predictable system. The revelation that followed shattered every assumption the Council had about their place in the universe. Captain Rodriguez calmly explained that the Harmony was just the first of several human vessels that would be arriving over the coming months to establish formal diplomatic and trade relationships. She mentioned that Earth had been preparing for expanded galactic contact for quite some time, and was ready to contribute to what she called enhanced interstellar cooperation and prosperity. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, that humanity looked forward to sharing some of their technological and scientific achievements with their new galactic neighbors. She attached data files containing information about energy generation techniques, faster-than-light communication systems, and medical technologies that could extend lifespans by centuries. The casual way she presented these revolutionary advances made it clear that humans considered them basic starting points for cooperation rather than their greatest achievements. Admiral Liu concluded the presentation by addressing the Council's obvious concerns about human intentions. He explained that Earth had observed the Council's governance methods and had concluded that the existing system provided reasonable stability for galactic civilization. Humanity had no interest in conquest or domination, preferring to work within established frameworks rather than disrupting them unnecessarily. However, he noted with quiet emphasis, Earth did expect to be treated as an equal partner in galactic affairs rather than as a junior member seeking admission to an exclusive organization. The humans were not asking for permission to join galactic civilization. They were offering to participate in it as mature partners who brought capabilities that could benefit everyone involved. As the formal session concluded, Captain Rodriguez made a final statement that would be quoted in diplomatic archives for centuries to come. She thanked the Council for their time and attention, expressed humanity's sincere appreciation for their willingness to meet with representatives of a previously unknown species, and mentioned that Earth looked forward to contributing to galactic peace and prosperity through expanded cooperation and mutual assistance. The humans then presented detailed proposals for technology sharing agreements, cultural exchange programs, and cooperative research initiatives that demonstrated planning and preparation that had obviously taken decades to develop. They left behind communication devices that would allow instant contact with Earth, and promised that additional human representatives would arrive within the month to begin implementing whatever agreements the Council chose to accept. As the three humans filed out of the chamber, leaving behind a complete diplomatic package that addressed every aspect of interstellar relations, the Council members sat in stunned silence. They had expected to be interviewing potential new members for their galactic community. Instead, they had discovered that they were being evaluated by beings who had already decided that the Council was worthy of partnership with humanity. The emergency sessions that followed lasted for days as 5 different species tried to understand what had just happened to their galaxy. The humans had not conquered them or threatened them or demanded anything from them. They had simply arrived, demonstrated quiet competence in every field that mattered, and politely offered to help the galaxy develop more advanced capabilities. The most terrifying realization was that everyone in that chamber understood the humans were being generous by offering partnership at all. They could have taken control of galactic civilization through superior technology and strategic advantage, but had chosen cooperation instead. The balance of power in the galaxy had not shifted. It had been completely redefined by beings who possessed the wisdom to use their advantages for creation rather than destruction. The Galactic Council would continue to govern interstellar affairs, but they would do so knowing that humanity was watching, offering guidance, and providing protection for a civilization that had suddenly discovered it was no longer alone at the top of the universal hierarchy. The age of human partnership had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Asterisk.